I often work with our crew, who are a great bunch. They're hard working, but also up for a laugh, and part of what makes me get out of bed each day. It's really quiet first thing, but there's always a lot to clean. Sometimes it's a bit of a mess and there's rubbish scattered around. I clean the footpath, the street furniture, the bins, and remove graffiti off public buildings. I like it. It keeps me busy. It feels pretty satisfying to know that at the end of each day I've made Sydney Road look a little better for everyone who lives, works and visits here. Cleaner streets make it a nicer place to shop too, and that helps our local traders. And as everyone starts their day and the shop's open, I get to meet some lovely community members and their dogs. Everyone knows Sydney Road is legendary. We should all show it some love.
Families come to us with breastfeeding issues and we help them to overcome them and hopefully meet their goals of breastfeeding. So the benefits of visiting a lactation consultant is getting on top of any challenges early. The first few weeks of a lactation really determine the sort of milk supply that a woman's going to develop, and the way that a baby prefers to feed develops in the first month or so. So it's important to come early. And of course, visiting Merri-bek's clinic, it's free. So it's expensive to access a private lactation consultant. You've got the choice of 3 clinics, so you can go to the clinic that's closest to your home.
So Merri-bek breastfeeding clinic was referred to us by the maternal child health nurse. Unfortunately, he wasn't quite gaining the weight that he is supposed to be gaining. So they suggested that potentially to see a lactation consultant, and that the council offers one, and we could get one in pretty quickly, and they did. We pretty much had a weigh-in, and a few days later we got a call saying we've got an appointment. Definitely go for it, because they are private lactation consultants as well, but they cost a bit and sometimes take a while to get in. We thought that we might as well give it a go. There's no harm in trying and seeing what we hear and what we come across, I guess, when we get to the appointment. I found it beneficial. There was stuff that I didn't know going in, very simple things even that could make a lot of difference at home with breastfeeding, and also about a feeding plan or what might be causing certain issues and what might help, what might not help. And so yeah, I think it's quite a good service for people to have just up their sleeve, whether they take anything away from it or not. There's no harm in going for it and seeing what you get. Even hearing some of the information or and how to hold your baby properly, your better latching and more comfortable latching, I think is almost immediately I could see the result. Even in the short session, I was much more comfortable.
I would say also just for peace of mind as new parents, it's great to know that this service is so readily available, and also for us just around the corner as well. As the partner or the support person, sometimes you can feel a little bit secondary in this whole process, but it was great to come down and hear it all firsthand, and also to be here to help out with Alex in the parts that he was being a little cranky.
I actually really love helping women to breastfeed. I see them come in feeling despondent, feeling like they've been told a lot of information, feeling like it's not going to be possible, and I get a lot of joy out of seeing them leave with some hope, and then maybe come back the following week with some improvements. Yeah, it gives me a lot of joy to see that.
Libraries are the heart of our community. They connect us, inspire us, and support lifelong learning.
Whether it's borrowing books, thank you,
learning how to use computers,
getting creative in our makerspaces,
or simply having a welcoming space to belong. The library is the place to be.
We're always evolving our spaces, collections and services to meet the diverse needs of our wonderful community.
I love my library. It's a safe place to be, it's inclusive. I always find something new that interests me. It's not just a place for books anymore.
a library has something for people of all ages.
And is a place of discovery, events and learning at every stage of life. It's your library. Visit us today.
Did you know that Merri-bek is home to a diverse community where more than 95 languages are spoken? That's why we offer information on council services in your language. If you've received a rates notice that you don't understand, would like to request a new bin, or have another question for council, we can help. We have free in-person and phone interpreters who can help you communicate with staff at council in your language. To request an interpreter, simply call 92401111 and ask one of our customer service staff to organize one for you. You can also request an interpreter at one of our customer service centers, libraries, or maternal and child health centers. At Merri-bek, we're proud of our diverse community and we want to make sure everyone can access our services. For more information about our language services, please visit our website.
Wheel Sisters came about after some women in Fawkner approached us, wanting to learn to ride bikes and also find other women from their own community to ride with, including women who might ride in hijab or an abaya. One of the things that never gets old when you teach people to ride bikes is the sheer thrill they get when they realise they can do it.
The really special thing about teaching.
Good evening, councillors, members of the gallery and to our viewers live streaming tonight's meeting. My name is Councillor Nadabood and I am the Mayor of Merri-bek City Council and the chairperson for tonight's council meeting for planning and related matters. It's my pleasure to welcome you to tonight's meeting. We are meeting on the lands of the Wurundjeri Woiwurrung people. We wish to acknowledge them as the traditional custodians of these lands and waterways, and we would also like to pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging, as well as to all First Nations communities who significantly contribute to life of this city. This council is being recorded and web streamed live to council's website and YouTube. This recording will also be available as video on demand. Attendees are advised that they will be recorded during the meeting. A reminder that as councillors, we will, in accordance with the Councillor Code of Conduct, which will support the principles of leadership. A reminder that as councillors, we will act in accordance with the Councillor Code of Conduct, which will support the principles of leadership and good governance that secures public confidence in the office of councillor. In the event of an emergency or disruption, we may be required to take action to ensure the safety of attendees. For members of the gallery and councillors attending in person, please follow the directions issued by council staff and security officers. Thank you for your understanding and cooperation. I'd like to introduce the other councillors in attendance tonight. Councillor Sue Bolton. Councillor Liz Irvin.
Hi everyone.
Councillor Chris Miles.
Evening.
Councillor Adam Pulford.
Hi everyone.
Councillor Alice Svensson.
Good evening.
Councillor Katarine Theodosis.
Hi everyone.
And Councillor Oscar Yildiz.
Good evening.
And I'd also like to acknowledge the following councillors who have been approved to attend tonight's meeting via electronic means. The Deputy Mayor, Councillor Dr. Jay Iwasaki.
Hello everyone.
I'd also like to acknowledge that I've received apologies from Councillor Davidson and Councillor Politis this evening. I'd like to move on to disclosures of conflicts of interest. Councillors, are there any conflicts of interest to declare? Thank you. Yes. Oh, Councillor Wasaki.
Just for the Breeze Street.
Can't quite hear, Councillor.
So you can hear me?
Just 1 minute.
Sorry, Jay, we can't hear you.
We're just going to work out your sound. At this stage, we can hear you in the gallery, but not in the chamber. Try to say something now, see if you've got you back.
Hello.
Oh, there you are.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Thanks for picking that up for me. Yeah, just declaring conflict of interest for the Breeze Street item.
Thank you, Councillor. So that's not on tonight's agenda.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Easy.
Yep. Thank you so much. So I'll now move to confirmation of minutes of previous meetings. Councillor, could I have a motion for the confirmation of the minutes of the council meeting for planning and related matters held on the 22nd of October 2025? Thank you, Councillor Theodosis. And Councillor Irvin to second. I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? Against? I declare that carried. Before we move on to the reports for consideration, I'll outline how the council meeting for planning and related matters will run this evening. For the item in relation to a planning permit application, the relevant planner will introduce the report and the officer recommendations. I will then give objectors and supporters the opportunity to make their submission. After this time, the applicant will be given the opportunity to speak. If you are making a submission, please clearly state your name for the record. You are requested to present viewpoints clearly and concisely on why you oppose or support the planning application. Please do not repeat what earlier speakers have said and keep the discussion focused on relevant issues and points not previously raised. If you are opposed to the planning application, would you please inform the meeting why you are opposed and suggest an alternative approach, which would satisfy your concerns. Please use this opportunity to focus on your concerns rather than matters of detail in the officer's report. Please also note that there is a limit of 3 minutes for each speaker and the permit applicant, but as chairperson, I reserve the right to increase or reduce the time available to any speaker. So we'll now move to the presentation of reports, and we have 3 reports this evening. The first one is 5.1, City Development Activity Report, September quarter, 2025-26 FY. Does any councillor have a conflict of interest to disclose? Thank you. At the moment, we don't have any speakers listed to speak to this report. Are there any people in attendance in the gallery tonight who'd like to address council on this report? No? Thank you. So, councillors, I'd ask if I could please have a motion. Thank you, Councillor Bolton. And a seconder? Oh, thank you, Councillor Miles. Councillor Bolton, would you like to speak?
Just very briefly, the City Development report comes out quarterly, explaining the quantity of planning applications, reports on the extent of enforcement that the council is doing, and so it sort of charts the progress of planning applications and whether or not the council is meeting its targets in terms of the time frame within its decision making and so forth on those applications, planning enforcements, what's happening with VCAT appeals, etc. There are less planning applications that come before council because most planning applications have been taken over by the state government. So there aren't as many that come before council, or at least major projects have been taken over by state, a lot of them have been taken over by state government. But one thing which is interesting to note, because sometimes the argument that is raised within this chamber that we shouldn't oppose something because it might trigger something going to VCAT, and that's a valid concern. But there is a report of something having been taken to VCAT by an objector, which resulted in a conference of all the parties and concessions being made by the developer. so actually got an improved outcome. So I think it is important that we are just open and honest in terms of our response to development applications when improvements do need to be made.
Thank you, Councillor Bolton. Councillor Miles, would you like to speak?
No, nothing to add.
Thank you, Councillor Miles. Councillors, are there any speakers against the motion? And no one else who'd like to speak further in favour? So I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried. So item 5.2, 139 Lungana Avenue, Glenroy, planning permit application MPS 2025-364. Does any councillor have a conflict of interest to disclose? I'll ask Dee Erdogan, Planning Coordinator, to present the report, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, councillors. Next item on tonight's agenda is an application to construct 5 double-storey dwellings and a reduction in statutory car parking requirements at 139 Lungana Avenue in Glenroy. The application is currently at decision-making stage. The site is located on the northwest side of Lungana Avenue in an established residential area. It has a total site area of approximately 1,117 square metres. The site is relatively flat and contains a double-storey weatherboard house. The surrounding area is residential with a single-storey dwelling the surrounding area is residential with single dwellings and townhouse developments. The rear of the site is a freight train line. Here you can see a photo of the subject site and neighbouring properties taken from Lungana Avenue. In terms of planning controls, the site is located within the neighbourhood residential zone, where a planning permit is required to construct 2 or more dwellings on a lot and reduce the car parking requirements. The proposal seeks approval to construct 5 double-storey dwellings and a reduction in statutory car parking requirements. 10 on-site car parking spaces accessed via 2 crossovers off Lungana Avenue with no visitor car parking spaces provided. Notice of this application occurred by sending out mail and posting a sign on the site. The map on the screen shows the location of objectors with red dots. There was a total of 12 objections received, with the key issues being overdevelopment, car parking, and traffic congestion. A planning information and discussion meeting was held on 5 November 2025, which was attended by planning officers, the applicant, and objectors. At this meeting, discussion plans were presented by the applicant that would convert dwelling 3 into a 2-bedroom townhouse, allowing one of the car parks to be converted into a visitor space. The key considerations for this application are street setback, overlooking, and car parking. It is the officer's recommendation that a notice of decision to grant a planning permit be issued subject to key conditions requiring conversion of dwelling 3 into a 2-bedroom dwelling, the front setback to be increased to a minimum of 7 metres, and fixed screening to prevent downward views into neighbouring garden areas. Thank you all.
Thank you, Dee. We have 4 objectors who have indicated that they wish to speak, and they're all online. So we'll hear first from Chatharika, if we have you. Hello.
Hi, how are you?
Well, thank you. Go right ahead. Whenever you're ready to speak. Oh, hello.
Sorry.
Can you hear us?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
That's okay, no pressure. Whenever you're ready.
Sorry. Yeah. So do I just sorry, I just got accepted to the meeting, so I'm not sure if there was discussion. So do I
We're ready to we're ready to hear from you whenever you're ready to speak.
Okay, yeah.
Go for it.
I'm 130 Lungana Avenue. My main concern is parking, because when I own two properties, 130 and 143. So 143 on the same side of the 139. So my main concern is for parking, because personal experience, even with having single garage 143, all the vehicles, like 143 have 3 vehicles. I'm renting that property at the moment, so I do have 3 tenants. They all have vehicles. 2 of them, they're already parking on the street. So, minimal units get built, that mean more and more vehicles will be parking on the street. If any emergency, what's the like how the emergency, like for example, like if there is a fire truck, God forbid nothing happen, but how the all these rules will affect if our street is full of vehicles, like both sides, how can a fire truck pass by? That's my main concern, because I live on the street almost 17 years, and I have seen slowly. So when I moved in 17 years ago, almost 17 years ago, we don't have that many cars on the street. But now, 17 years later, every if you go out, both sides of the street full of vehicles. So my question for the council is less parking on the site. That mean that will affect residents to park on the street. That will affect on if the emergency, like fire truck, also even like Mondays, garbage truck, how they're gonna pass by, because not every single family have a smaller car like a Mazda 3 or Toyota Corolla. Most of the households, they have larger vehicles now, like Toyota Klugers or like Highlanders or like a larger vehicle. So when all park both sides, how with all the rules and regulations, fire truck pass by, what's there if there is a a space that they need to leave for them to safely drive past. If
Thank
it
you.
is like what I have read through, you have to have certain meter or 2 meters. Both, we would not have that. So that's
Thank
my concern. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So I'll move next to the next statement, which is from Damien Finch. If we can bring Damien into the room. He's also online. Hello, Damien. Whenever you're ready, if you can hear us, we're ready for you to speak. Can you hear us, Damien?
Yes, I can.
Okay. Whenever you're ready, we've got you loud and clear here.
Oh, hi. Good evening, everybody. Okay, so I suppose where do I start? Well, I haven't done this before.
That's okay. Take your time.
Okay. Is it only me for the this topic. My neighbour wanted to join as well, and she's waiting online.
Yeah, we have had one speaker already, and there's another two to come after you. So you've got,
Okay.
you know, about 3 minutes to let us know your concerns about the application.
Okay, so our original concern was about the parking that was on the actual block. The development has since been modified to reduce the number of bedrooms by one in one of the dwellings, and the what was going to be one of the dwellings parking spaces has become I'm on video. Has become a visitors parking space. So I suppose our concern with part of it is that the what has been changed to the third bedroom, you know, that third bedroom removal could easily be reinstated back to a bedroom. The other one that I was objecting to is the front unit. There's only about 5 meters of space between the garage door and the street, which means if you've got a vehicle that's over 5 meters long, it's going to park out into the street. A lot of you double cab utes are 5.5 meters long, so and I know that there's at least one vision impaired person who regularly sorry
That's
walks
okay.
up and down the street. So basically, a major concern was about the number of dwellings, the effect it's going to have on the block itself, and also the number of additional cars that are going to be put into the street, because that's not the only development. Like within, you know, within say 100 meters or so, there's 2 4-bedroom dwellings that are going in place of what were previously single 3-bedroom houses, and on the corner as well, there's a 4-bedroom and a 5-bedroom dwelling going into the block that used to have a 3-bedroom house. So the amount of cars that are just parked in the street all the time is just growing and growing, and there's no consideration for the existing residents and their amenity, how they access their houses. The streets basically just getting full up with cars everywhere, and it's partly because developers are just cramming as many units as they can onto each block to maximise the profits.
Thank you, Damien. Damien, I just want to let you know the other two people haven't arrived online at this stage. So is there anything else you felt like you needed to mention on their behalf?
Yeah, I suppose one thing we also looked at was the setback of the front units. This development is proposing it down to a 6-meter setback, whereas the rest of the street is at 7.5. And I recognise that the planning regulations have changed, but it's still not in keeping with the character of the street. So I don't know. Am I able to share things to the meeting?
I'll just find out.
I've got some PowerPoint images that I could bring up that might describe things a bit better.
Yeah. Unfortunately, that's not really allowable. Just in future,
fine.
if you wanted to email us, you're more than welcome to. But I do know that Councillor Bolton has a question for you.
Sure.
Hi, Damien. There was something you said that I didn't quite catch everything. You mentioned that one of the units only has, is it 5 metres between the garage and the street? And
I think it's 5. It's either 5 or 5.5. Hang on, I'll just go to my PowerPoint, because I did send in this.
Which unit is that, Damien?
It was the front unit. Unit number 1. It was actually it was about 5. I'll just go to the page. Sorry, you're going to see me looking at a screen, which isn't very exciting. So, oh no, actually no. They've got it will be the space from the roller door to the actual street is 6 meters. Sorry, but they've drawn a car space there at 4.9 meters, so they're leaving, I suppose, half a meter in front of the vehicle, half a meter behind if the vehicle's 4.9 meters. But the thing is that say the weather's say it's raining, you're going to want to get out of your vehicle, come around the front of the vehicle, and go into your house because that's the shortest path possible. So that will mean that people are going to tend to park their vehicle to the rear of the parking space available, which will mean that that if it starts a double cab ute, which is quite a common vehicle in the area, it will be going out over footpaths. So I suppose, option I would suggest is that garage that it is the parking spaces in front of. Could the garage be moved, say, a metre further into the property, just to allow a larger parking space there for a larger vehicle?
Thank you, Damien. Councillor Bolton, would you like to have that question answered by officers who have the application in front of them as well?
Yeah, I would like to. Yeah.
If we could hear an answer.
Although usually that happens after all the speakers.
Well, the other two speakers are not in that is the end of the speakers. That's why I've given Damien so much time. Thanks, Phil.
Thank you, Mayor, through the chair. The planning applications are all reviewed by our traffic engineers who look at the size of spaces, see whether they meet Australian standards. The Australian standard length for a car parking space is 4.9 metres. So the proposal as submitted complied with that requirement. In terms of the front dwelling though, the recommendation before council tonight in the agenda is that the setbacks of the dwellings be increased to 7 metres. So as a result of that change, there will be an extra metre of driveway if that matter does not proceed to VCAT and that condition is accepted. Thank you.
Sorry.
Oh. Yeah. Councillor Myers, did you have a question?
Sorry, what is the length of that driveway? Sorry, I've missed it because there's been so many numbers jumping around. What is the...
5 metres is what was the submission that was made.
Thank you.
But it would be 6 if the setback was pushed back?
That's correct. And compliant would be 4.9.
Thank you, councillors, and thank you, Damien. I've heard that Madeline Dober is also online, so we could, if we could have Madeline, whenever you're ready to speak.
Hello, councillors. Hello. Apologies if I'm repeating myself, or repeating what others have said, because you can't join the meeting and be in the waiting room at the same time.
Sure.
I'm a resident of 120 Lungana Avenue, directly opposite the proposed development. My main concern is around car parking, as has probably been previously mentioned. Our street, although described in the planning as a quiet residential street, is actually quite a busy street. It tends to be a thoroughfare, and we have a primary school right near the end of the street. So what typically happens is during pickups and drop-offs, our street parking is a nightmare, where we get lots of parents parking down our street. At the previous meeting, the planner also mentioned that they previously developed, I think it was 101 Lungana, 5 dwellings, and a point was made that in our particular spot of Lungana, there's, within a 4 or 5 house radius of this development, there's at least 8 multi-dwelling properties now, and so this particular part of Lungana is highly built up with multi-house residences, properties with 4 or 5 houses on them. So it is a very busy part of the street, and therefore you get a lot of street parking. The problem with lots of street parking in a narrow street is you have difficulties with accesses to emergency services, garbage collection, and there's often accidents on our street as well because of the very narrow nature of it and the street parking. So the consensus in the previous meeting, when there were 6 objectors attending, was that we would suggest that the planning reduce the number of dwellings planned. The consensus at that meeting was 2 dwellings would maintain the livability and sustainability of our area of Lungana. So I think today I'd support 2. I mean, personally, I'd say 3 would probably be reasonable to still maintain some sense of livability in the region, in the area. However, 5 dwellings, each with multiple cars and very tight, small garages, would mean that the street would be, the parking issue in the street would be significant.
Thank you.
That's my 3 minutes. Thanks.
Thanks, Madeline. Thank you. And thanks for keeping to time as well. I've also heard that Shirley Billing is waiting to speak online as well, if we can bring Shirley in. Oh, sorry. Shirley's not for this application. We'll get back to that. Okay, so I'll just double check that whether there are any other people in attendance in the gallery tonight who'd like to address the council on this application. That's that. Yeah. Yeah. And so I now to call on the permit applicant or a representative of the permit applicant to make a submission. Thank you.
Good evening, councillors. Thanks for allowing me to present this evening. My name is David Di Giovanni. I'm a town planning consultant representing the applicant here. It's been good hearing the neighbours, and I'll address the matter of car parking in a moment. But firstly, councillors, what you've got before you is a scheme that has high compliance with the planning scheme, so the deemed to comply provision. So there's 2 areas that have been addressed in the officer recommendation. The first one is the front setback, and if you go to condition 1D, it asks for a front setback dwelling 7 metres, which would comply. And then condition 1A sub point 1 deals with screening of windows. But essentially through those conditions, you've got a development that meets every single deemed to comply provision. And the way this, without getting technical, but if this went to a tribunal, the tribunal wouldn't have jurisdictional power to refuse it because it meets everything. Probably the big point that's come out tonight is car parking, and this proposal initially sought to waive the visitor parking. Now, through the meeting, it's a planning information discussion meeting earlier this month in November, the applicant made concessions and changes to the plans and essentially converted a 3-bedroom unit to a 2-bedroom unit. That's the middle unit, the central one. And its side car space has now become a visitor space. It's in the middle of the site, accessible to visitors, and that's a designated visitor car space. So what you have now, councillors, is a development that provides all required car parking on site for residents and all for visitors. Now, again, how this works, if it were to go further, is Clause 52 that deals with car parking, 5206, is structured in a way that if you meet parking, there isn't provision for a tribunal, for example, to require more parking. If you meet it, you meet it. And this is a scheme that meets the required parking. I think here, having heard the neighbours, parking is probably a broader issue here. Garbage collection, emergency vehicles, I'm not denying that's a problem. I'm sure it is a problem, and I live in an area too where there's congestion and you've got to wait for vehicles. It can be a pain. But I think in these instances, it's a broader issue that needs to be addressed, i.e. do you have parking restrictions? Do you put speed limiting devices in the street? Things like that, rather than just refusing development or reducing density. That's not the solution. The solution is getting to the core of the issue about how parking works in the street. Probably another matter that comes up, I think is important, councillors, is the way that Unit 3 is to be reconfigured to make it a 2-bedroom dwelling from 3-bedroom, and that's condition 1C, if you can read condition 1C. But essentially, what happens with internally, it was up on the screen before, it's a shame it's gone, don't know if we can get that up again, but essentially the retreat area where the bedroom was upstairs, it's now become a retreat, and it's fair concern from the neighbours, why can't you just fence that off or wall it off into a bedroom again? And by turning the stairs around, you actually have to walk through that room to get to the stairs. So if you're in any other bedroom and you want to go upstairs and downstairs, you have to walk through that space because it's been swung around. So it cannot be physically converted to a bedroom. It is a genuine 2-bedroom dwelling. So, councillors, to wrap up, how am I going with time? This is a scheme that, with the conditions in the officer recommendation, will be fully compliant with the deemed to comply provisions. It meets all required parking. We have made concessions, tried to work with officers. We acknowledge the concerns of council, of the objectors, but I think a lot of those concerns, and I'm sure they're valid, about parking in the street, congestion and so forth, are broader management issues, parking issues with council, Vic roads, etc., rather than refusing development or knocking a dwelling off and so forth. So I think that covers it all. It's highly compliant. It will have a combination of 2- and 3-bedroom dwellings in a location where you can walk to trains and transport and so forth.
Thank you, David.
It's a good scheme. Thanks.
Well done. Thank you. Any questions from councillors?
You might be able to answer this, but what is the actual width of that street from gutter to gutter? I tried to work it out. I got it roughly at 10, but...
Might, through the Mayor, just check with officers whether they have that at hand. I certainly don't.
Are there any other questions while we find out about the width of the street? Yep. Won't be a minute. That's okay.
So scaling off the plans, so there'll be a margin of error. We've got it roughly around about 6.3 metre width is the street.
Great. Thank you. I'll just double check that there are no further questions. And then I need to ask for a motion regarding this application, please. Anyone prepared to move the... Councillor Erfin, thank you. And the seconder? I'm happy to second. Councillor Erfin, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Yes, and thank you to everyone who's spoken tonight. I appreciate, objectors having their say. I think that's sort of how we end up with stronger applications, and this planning application has been modified based on feedback from objectors. Parking is, it's always an issue that we hear about when this comes before us, and I think it's really important to look at kind of the broader trends in car ownership and parking rates, even in areas like Glenroy that are typically more car dependent than other parts of Merri-bek. So the average car ownership in Glenroy West that this area, this planning permit, falls under is actually 1.5 cars per dwelling. So even though there are obviously some dwellings that are higher than that, it is a very small number. Actually, most places will only have 1 car, and the number of places with 3 cars is actually only 7%. So it is a very small minority. I think when people are buying a home, they do have to consider their parking needs. And I think if you're looking for a place and you have a bigger car, you need to look at the size of the garage and ensure that it fits. You need to think about the fact that in the future, if parking restrictions are introduced, you may not be able to park on the street. And you need to think about the number of cars you have and the capacity of the house to handle that. So I do think that there are ways that we can address the parking. I think having a fully compliant, number of parking spaces is actually quite rare. Normally there is a reduction sought. So I guess, the fact that you are providing the statutory rate is fairly rare, and I think should put councillors at ease that there will be more than adequate parking for this development. I think to speak to some of the other concerns about traffic and the impact of more parking on the street, this street is actually on the Streets for People plan. Being down the road from a school means that we are really concerned about how people get to that school and the impact of school traffic on residents. And we want to ensure that people can travel safely to school. We've got a really good school active travel behaviour plan, and we want to be able to back that up with safe routes to school and the infrastructure. So certainly this means, I guess, residents should really take heart that in the future we will be working with you and with other residents to introduce measures to reduce traffic on Lungana Avenue and reduce that impact of the school traffic. Otherwise, really just to say this is an application that's within 15-minute walk to Glenroy Station and the other amenities and services there. I think it's well located and meets what we want to be seeing in terms of development in our city. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Irving. Are there any other councillors who'd like, other councillors that would like to speak against the motion? Anyone else who would like to speak at all? Oh, Councillor Bolton.
I really do feel for the residents in this street because I'm very aware that a few years ago parking traffic was an absolute nightmare around Glenroy West Primary School, and there was a group of parents and the school and got together with council to try and work out some solutions. I lost track of what happened at the end of that, because I think there's also an aged care, if I remember rightly, place nearby as well. Like there was a few different uses in one end of the street, which clearly impacts on this area. But I think, and I can understand residents wanting to reduce the number of units, and yeah, I probably would support maybe lopping off one of the units. But I think with a development like this, where regardless of whether or not we think the standards are sufficient or not, I think this, like if you tried to get rid of a couple of the units, then it would probably amount to like equivalent to an objection, rejection, which would then be appealed at VCAT. And actually most developments that come before council have a big reduction in parking compared to the two applications before us tonight. So that doesn't mean that things are great for the residents, because is a reasonable, I haven't walked from Lungana to the train station, but it was a reasonable walk. You have to be fit and healthy to do it. So it's not right next door, but I think there do need to be some things looked at by council, but that doesn't happen through the planning permit process. It's a different part of council. It's the transport department. But I do think it would be great if maybe planners could maybe mention to the infrastructure department ask them if the garbage trucks are having trouble getting through. I think that would be one thing that we should check up about, because 6 point whatever it is meters isn't a very big road if there's vehicles parked opposite each other, and especially if they're both work vehicles. So because there are a lot of work vehicles in Glenroy, work utes, which are, a lot of work utes are giant these days compared to the past. So I think if there is anything we can do through the council to assist at all with traffic situation on the street, I think that'd be good.
Thank you, Councillor Bolton. Are there any other councillors who would like to speak to the application? If not, I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried unanimously. Thanks, councillors. I'll now ask the officer to outline the next steps. Thank you, Dee.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, councillors. Council has decided to issue a notice of decision to grant a planning permit for the construction of 5 double-storey dwellings at 139 Lungana Avenue, Glenroy, subject to the conditions contained within the recommendation. Following the issue of the notice of decision, both the applicant and all objecting parties will receive a copy of the notice of decision to grant a planning permit. Objectors will have 21 days to appeal to Council's decision at the Victorian Civil and Administrative Tribunal. In the event that no appeal is lodged at VCAT, a planning permit will be issued. If a permit is issued, the applicant has 60 days from the date of issue of the notice of decision to appeal any conditions on the permit. Thank you all.
Thank you, Dee. I'll now move to item 5.3, which is 2 to 4 McColl Court, Brunswick West, planning permit application MPS 2025-289. I'll need to ask if any councillor has a conflict of interest to disclose. No, thank you. I'll ask Eileen Chin to please, the planning coordinator, to please present the report. Thank you, Eileen.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, councillors and gallery. This planning application relates to number 2 to 4 McColl Court, Brunswick West, for the construction of 6 double-storey dwellings and a reduction in the statutory car parking requirements. The site comprises 2 allotments with an area of just under 1,100 square metres and is a combined frontage on McColl Court to the north of 24.7 metres. It is currently occupied by 3 single-storey brick dwellings. The site is located within an established residential area where there is a mix of housing, including single and double-storey dwellings. There are double-storey walk-up flats immediately to the east, which was built in approximately the 70s. There's also an emerging character of newer multi-unit development on McColl Street. As for the planning controls, the site is located within the neighbourhood residential zone, Schedule 1. The proposal is for 6 double-storey dwellings, each with 3 bedrooms. Dwellings 1 and 6 face the street. A double garage is provided to each dwelling, with access obtained from a central shared driveway. A single-width crossover is also provided on McColl Court. 3 bicycle parking spaces are also provided, and a communal seating area within the front setback of the site. The application was advertised to the public in the form of signs on McColl Court and direct mail to neighbouring properties. We have now received 17 objections from 13 properties. A range of concerns were raised, including visitor car parking reduction, other amenity impacts, including overlooking, overshadowing, visual bulk, and noise, as well as a general overdevelopment of the site. A planning information and discussion meeting was held on the 2nd of October this year, which resulted in the applicant agreeing to a number of voluntary conditions. This includes the protection of neighbouring trees, additional screening measures to address overlooking, and also locating air conditioning units on the rooftops of dwellings. Key considerations for this proposal relate to visitor car parking, overlooking, and side and rear setbacks. It is recommended that a notice of decision to grant planning permit be issued subject to key conditions. These will require the decrease of the height of the front fence to 1.5 metres, and also a shift in the front fence location to the boundary, deleting a 0.5 metre setback. And as for the balconies of dwellings 2 and 3 on the first floor, a number of recommendations, including an increase of the setback on the western elevation, an increase of the height of screening to balconies to at least 1.7 metres above finished floor level, and lastly, a deletion of the associated planter boxes on the balconies. Thank you.
Thank you, Eileen. We have 3 objectors who've indicated that they'd like to speak, and they're each online. So I'll first ask Anik Tishini if we could bring Anik into the room. Oh, sorry, we're starting with Sarah McLaren. Thank you, Sarah. Whenever you're ready.
Thank you. Can you all hear me?
Yeah.
Excellent. I do apologise. My headset is about to die. I'll try and keep this brief. I would like to speak in objection to the development proposed at 2 to 4 McColl Court on 4 grounds, 3 of which were included in my objection lodged and 1 of which occurred to me today. The first ground is that it will cause an exponential increase in traffic volume and congestion in a very small cul-de-sac, which has a reasonably high amount of foot traffic, including small children who go to the adjacent park, playgrounds and walking paths. It will also block significant west-facing natural light for units 1, 2 and 3 of number 6 McColl Court at the adjacent property, which will especially impact units number 2 and 3. Unit 2 has no north or south-facing windows, only east and west. East is already significantly occluded by the development number 8. 3 only has south and west-facing windows. It will also impact privacy. The windows of the proposed top floor will look into the ground floor windows, west-facing windows of units 1, 2 and 3 of number 6 McColl Court. There is no reasonable way to prevent eyeline visibility into those rooms, which include bedrooms, bathrooms, and therefore places that are most deserving of privacy in any given residence. The proposed development also just frankly is not in aesthetic keeping with the majority of the other structures in the cul-de-sac, and it will detract from the tone of the surrounds. But I would like to highlight particularly the risk to safety for pedestrians, the reduction of natural light and the threat to privacy.
Thank you, Sarah. We also have Shirley Billing waiting to speak online. Thanks, Shirley. I'm aware you've been waiting a while because I tried to introduce you to the previous item, which you probably know nothing about. So thanks for waiting. Whenever you're ready. That's all right. Still got you on mute, but whenever you're ready.
Thank
there
you.
you go.
Thanks, Mayor Abboud and Deputy Mayor and councillors and staff. I've raised several concerns with this application. I live on the western boundary at 14 Hopeton Avenue, and I'm very pleased to see the council has addressed in the recommendations a number of those issues, including the screening and overlooking, which, as the previous speaker spoke to, is quite significant. I'd like to express my concern about the section B23, the setbacks. The western boundary setback doesn't comply with the standards, and the council has recommended it be increased. The balcony on dwelling 2 is directly opposite and incredibly close to my habitable private space, including bedroom, kitchen, bathroom. And I would like to see a further increase to the recommended setback so that it complies with the building code. All the other boundary setbacks are within or exceed the guidelines. It's just these particular balconies, which are called the private habitable spaces, which means there's going to be people gathering on them, noise, they're a social space as well. And as I said, it's in very close proximity and overlooking my private space. I'm grateful that the screening has been increased to 1.7 metres, and hopefully the windows are going to be frosted or screened as well. Also, just want to quickly mention the retaining wall that did get a mention on my property, which has not been annotated on the plans. The retaining wall is quite significant. It's about 24 feet long, a foot wide, and about nearly a metre high, cement wall. And I'm concerned that this hasn't been included in the building plans, as it's clearly part of the structural kind of integrity of that block and my block. And I would like to see something addressed about that, as it is a retaining wall, and I would have thought there'd need to be an engineer's report or something similar come along about that. Have I run out of time yet?
No, keep going. You've got half a minute.
Oh, that's fantastic. The car parking, it doesn't meet the requirements, as the previous speaker mentioned. There's a lot of cars in that little cul-de-sac. There's a lot of units. There's 2 blocks of units. And there's not enough car parking on the street. And they've asked for an exemption for that. But I think it's important to have visitor car parking if you're building that many dwellings. And finally, I have a fence line, a shared fence line that does not quite match the title fence line, and I am just wondering whether the applicant is going to remediate that.
Thank you, Shirley.
Thank you.
I've just heard that Anik is also online waiting to speak, so if we could hear from her, that would be great. Oh, we've lost her again. So, yeah. Okay. Since we've lost Anik again, we'll just move on. Are there any questions from councillors for... Do you have a question? Yeah, Councillor Bolton?
I've got some questions. I imagine it's for the council officers rather than the applicant. Firstly, the last speaker raised a number of issues, including about the retaining wall not being notated on the plans, about the balcony not being very close to their private open habitable space, and could that be amended? And there were a couple of other things that were mentioned as well. And then also the first objector, Sarah McLaren, mentioned, I didn't quite catch all of this, about losing sunlight. Yeah, so those are my questions.
Thank you,
And
Councillor
if there's
Bolton.
anything we can do to assist.
I think we'll just hear from the officer as a response for you. Thanks, Mark.
Great. Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Bolton. With the retaining wall, on tonight's agenda, condition 1H asks for the retaining wall to be shown. So that's in direct response to what Shirley, the submitter, mentioned. So hopefully that addresses that issue. With the balconies, for dwellings 2 and 3, there are 2 non-compliances with those balconies, that being overlooking and the side and rear setbacks. Condition 1C seeks compliance with both of the standards, so that condition will ensure that the planning scheme's met in respect to both the side and rear setbacks, and also in respect to overlooking by increasing the height of the screen. With respect to daylight to existing windows, that has been assessed, and the current setback meets the standard. So in terms of what the planning scheme requires, it's a reasonable outcome in terms of daylight.
Thank you, Mark.
Any further clarification? Or?
There you go. Well done.
Right, thank you.
There's something, had the speaker
I think that implied the title boundary.
Oh, okay.
Like the fence.
Yeah.
They would have to, so often fences aren't constructed on title boundaries, so that they're not perfectly aligned. and the planning requirement requires things to be measured and set back from the title boundary.
Okay.
So sometimes there's discrepancies because fences aren't always perfectly
Okay.
on the boundary. I think that's
Okay.
what the question
Yeah,
was.
okay.
Thanks, Mark. Anik is dropping in and out, and we've lost them again. So what we'll do is we'll ask the applicant, who's also online, or a representative of the permit applicant, to make their submission, and then if Anik comes back in again, we can loop back around to them. So James, if you're online, if you would like to talk to the application. Applicant who's also online. Thanks, James.
Thanks, councillors, and good evening. Appreciate the opportunity to address you tonight. I'm James Stewart-Menteith. I'm from ASK Planning. I'm here on behalf of the applicant in support of this development. I just wanted to start out by pointing out that this process commenced some 18 months ago with the pre-application meeting, which occurred in mid-2024, and that provided us with a set of feedback that we've worked with moving forward, and it's resulted in where we now sit with officer support, which we really welcome. Councillors, this site is a large amalgamated site of, as you heard, just under 1,100 square metres. The development of 6 dwellings on a site of this size is modest, particularly when compared to some of the other nearby developments in McColl Court, particularly to the east of the site. The modest yield and generous spacing of this development has meant that the proposal's been able to meet or exceed, in some cases, the vast majority of the Clause 55 standards, and there's a high level of compliance, or as it's termed now, deemed to comply. And critically, all standards relating to neighbouring amenity are met, noting that overlooking and side setbacks will become compliant through the application of Condition 1C. There are no boundary walls. There's good space around the development within a very diverse streetscape, as I mentioned, and they're some of the key positive attributes of this. One of the key objective concerns has been the visitor car parking waiver, which I note is offset by a net gain in on-street car parking, and that's due to the reduction in crossovers from the existing 2 crossovers to 1. Just in closing, councillors, while we largely agree with the recommendation of the officer, which has been put forward, I just wanted to briefly flag concern with one of the recommended conditions, and I understand this isn't a forum to be discussing conditions in detail, so I'll leave this with you to consider in your deliberations. But Condition 1A, I did reach out to the councillor group by email a couple of days ago. Apologies for the late notice, but I suggested in that email an alternative wording for the condition, which would allow for a front fence of 1.7 metres in lieu of the recommended 1.5 metres. And that would allow for seclusion and security to the street-facing dwellings, townhouses 1 and 6.
Thank you, James.
Thank you, councillors.
I'll just ask councillors if there are any questions for the applicant before I ask Anik to speak. No questions for the applicant? Okay, so thank you. If we still have Anik in the room online, we might try and hear from you now. Great. Hello. Whenever you're ready. Can you hear us here?
Oh, you're waiting for me?
Yep, go for your
Sorry.
life. Thank you.
Oh, this is about opposing the build on, yeah,
Yep, so we've heard from two objectors and we've got 3 minutes for you to speak to your objection. Thank you.
Yeah, as a resident of McColl Court, the parking is, there is none. It is busy, it is congested. The livability, more apartments in this area, units it's not needed, overlooking into other people's gardens and spaces. Yeah, so I firmly object.
Thanks so much. Okay, so can I just ask any councillors if we have any questions or you'd like anything clarified? No, thank you. Then I'd like to please ask for a motion regarding this item. Oh, Councillor Svensson.
I'd like to move the officer's report.
Thank you. And a seconder? Councillor Miles. Councillor Svensson, would you like to speak to the application?
Yes, please. First, I'd like to thank everybody who's been involved in the process, particularly the residents who've engaged with the applicant and our officers. I think there's been some really fruitful discussions. I think there's a lot of people who care very deeply about the area, and that's really obvious. I know McColl Court, it's not far from where I'd lived for many years. I know it's an area of Brunswick West that often gets forgotten about, the bit over the Moonee Ponds Creek, tucked away in a corner. And there has been a lot of development in the area to date that actually the neighbourhood character of the street is increasingly becoming one that is full of medium density and units and apartments. So the people who've lived there, I spoke to a resident who said in the 30 years they've lived there, it's gone from giant blocks of houses to significant development, but that it's something that he actually welcomes because he understands the importance of housing in the area in the midst of a housing crisis. But I think the concerns raised by residents are really understandable, and it's been great that the applicant's been willing to make a lot of changes to the application, including some voluntary ones that are not required under the standards. So that's included things like extra protection of trees for a neighbour who has I believe a plum tree that they care deeply about. Includes the relocation of air conditioning units to ensure that there's less impact on neighbours. So I think that really shows the positive outcomes that we can have when our officers work with applicants and residents early on in the process, that we can get things above and beyond the planning scheme. Because what we know about this application is if the conditions are complied with, the application does comply with the planning scheme, aside from one thing, which is the visitor car parking. But in the grand scheme of things, as we've heard, because a crossover will be removed as part of the development, there's actually more parking that's freed up on the street, which I would argue is better than visitor parking because anybody can use it. That goes from a visitor car park that only people in that unit can use to an on-street car park that's available to everybody. So when you take that into account, this application does, the spirit of the application does meet our planning scheme, which means that even though, it's the case with all developments, there's changes that would make the development better, but unfortunately not required under our planning scheme. So if we were to say no to this application, what that would mean is that we would likely end up at VCAT spending public money to argue something that we know would fail. So I think that's always something to keep in mind, that yes, this development, every development certainly could be higher quality and could be better, but with the planning scheme, we've got to work on what's possible, and there have been some really positive changes that have been made to this application, which I think is a good outcome for the area. I am mindful that parking is a big concern, and as has been spoken about with the earlier application in Glenroy, we are really keen as council to work with the residents in the area. Our transport team are always willing to hear from residents about how we can potentially look at changes to car parking in the area to ensure that there is parking that's available for residents who need it. So that's definitely a conversation that we can keep having ongoingly.
Thank you, Councillor Svensson. Councillor Miles, would you like to speak as the seconder?
No, I've got nothing to add.
Thank you, Councillor Miles. Are there other councillors that would like to speak to the application? Councillor Irvin?
Yes, I just wanted to add a couple of things. I guess with regarding the front fence, thanks to the applicant for kind of emailing through some more context on that. I do support keeping this at at 1.5 metres, I think it really sort of the main reasoning is that it does mean that it matches in with the street. And I do think the developer and future residents have the option to provide, a more natural screening through planting, which I guess also has the benefit of greening the street. And, I guess I'm sort of also reassured because there is a separate outdoor private space around the side of the dwelling as well. And regarding concerns around car parking, again, it's quite rare to see an application that actually meets the planning scheme requirements. It's a very lengthy process to update the planning scheme, and so this doesn't happen regularly. And what it means is that our planning scheme rates tend to be a lot higher than actual car ownership. And so even though they're used as kind of a gold standard for what should be being delivered, it does mean that we're actually over-providing car parking in private houses, and this does increase the cost of housing. And so if we look at Brunswick West, the average car ownership there is 1.3 cars per dwelling. So even with rounding up, this development would only need 8 car parking spaces. So there are actually 4 additional car parking spaces that would be available. And I live in an apartment building. There's quite regular conversations between residents. If someone has someone parking, can they borrow a spare spot, all that. I'm quite confident that residents within this, what will be a close-knit community of 6 dwellings, that they'll be able to manage visitor parking if someone does have, a single car and a spare spot in their garage. So I'm, very comfortable with the level of parking provided, and especially with the removal of, one of the driveways. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Irving. Are there any other councillors who'd like to speak to the application? No. I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Against? I declare that carried unanimously. I now ask the officer to outline the next steps. Thanks, Eileen.
Thank you, Mayor. The Council has decided to issue a Notice of Decision to grant a planning permit for the construction of 6 double-storey dwellings and a reduction in the statutory car parking requirements, subject to the conditions contained within the recommendation. Following the issue of the Notice of Decision, both the applicant and all objector parties will receive a copy of the Notice of Decision to grant a planning permit. Objectors will have 28 days to appeal Council's decision at the Victorian Civil and Administrative Tribunal. In the event that no appeal is lodged at VCAT, a planning permit will be issued. If a permit is issued, the applicant has 60 days from date of issue of the Notice of Decision to appeal any conditions on the permit. Thank you.
Thank you, Eileen. So, councillors, that brings us to the end of the meeting. I'd like to thank all of you and everyone at home for your patience, and also everyone for their interest in council matters, and wish you all a good night. And I declare the council meeting closed to the public at 7:40. Thank you.